Good evening, and it's another Friday night, and it's another loaded mag. Now, as you can see, unfortunately, we're a bit depleted tonight. It's just me and Pete. Daz has got other engagements. I think Martin's not very well. The family's not very well as they've had a few COVID tests today, so still waiting for the results of them. So we wish them well soon. Unfortunately, Chris had to go and collect his Avon round tonight, so he's not with us tonight. Unfortunately, for pressing matters of employment, should we say? So it's just me and Pete tonight, and just to let you all know that unfortunately Pete's babysitting duties tonight, and the little one's up and down a little bit at the minute. So if we have to call the show short, apologies to start with, but Pete does believe that the Ben is settled, so we will plod on as we can. So Pete, apart from that, how are you, mate?
Not too bad, not too bad. Typical on a Friday night, loaded mag, flagship show. The missus is out with friends, and I'm on baby duties, and the boy starts to play just as we're about to go live. It is absolutely typical. But look, I think he's settled right now. I'm watching him on the monitor. He's only a little babber, but yeah, he looks all good for now. So fingers crossed he can last the show.
Good, good. Well, whilst we're kicking off the show, all we'll do is first away straight away. Thank you very much, Donald, for becoming a member of the channel. You've been with us from the start, when we were all the way back at LFW. So we much appreciate that, mate, and it'll help us go on to putting more and more shows out there for you. So, Pete, another week in NUFC. What have you made of this week so far, then?
You know what? I think it's actually been quite quiet compared to the last 6 weeks. There's been constantly something in the last 6 weeks going on at the club that's been a massive talking point. And actually, this week it's been quite quiet. I don't know if it's because, obviously Howe has been isolating, so not been at training, and there's not been as much emphasis on that. It's only really picked up today, and obviously the great news, and I'm sure we'll talk about it with Eddie Howe being back in the dugout tomorrow, is really kind of sparked things into life, really. But other than that, it's actually been quite quiet, and I mean, kind of like, I don't know what you guys think in the chat, and I don't know what you guys think, Richie, as well. Like, quiet's not necessarily a bad thing, particularly with the big game coming up tomorrow. I don't think it's been that big of a bad thing. So, fingers crossed, we can. We can make it work for us at 12:30 tomorrow.
Hopefully, as we know, Arsenal's not our greatest stomping grounds, unfortunately, is it, Pete? You go back, I think, was it 2010 when Andy Carroll scored and we won 1-0? I think that's the last time we won down there. So, but as I always say, records are there to be broken. And so, what's to say we can't go there and get something tomorrow? Everyone in the chat, let us know what you think. Do you think we can go there tomorrow and get a result? So, regard to director of football, Pete, we are still nowhere forward. Obviously, another point we mentioned before about being on quiet on that sort of front. Do you think it's still plodding away? Do you think that that they're still trying to finalise things with Emanalo, or do you think they're just taking the time a little bit more to run the rule over other candidates?
You know what? It's a great question, and I think, I think if you look back to the managerial appointment, with Eddie Howe, and how long they took to make that decision, and how meticulous they were with making that decision. They, all the talk about Unai Emery, whether he was the first choice or not, what happened with that is that he wasn't officially offered the job, and all the rest of it. They did their due diligence. They did their interview process. They scouted far and wide for a number of different managers before they're making the decision. I believe they're doing the same right now for the sort of director of football. Now, I think Emanalo is top of the list, and certainly a director of football that they want, especially the fact that he works with the manager and he likes Eddie Howe. It makes a perfect fit. But they are here for the long haul, and I think they've said this a lot recently. And they will make a decision not just for the now, but for the next few years and how they build forward. So I'm not alarmed by the fact that it's gone quiet with that. I think our priority is making sure that director of football is in place before January, because they are going to have a huge say on who comes into the club. And you see all the links with all the players that we're linked to. I think there's maybe some truth in one or two of them, but I think a lot of them are sort of pie in the sky. And I actually think a lot of them won't be considered by Emanalo or whoever is a director of football. They might have their own mindset of who they want to bring in. And I think we might have some surprises come January of players that have not been linked in the media. And that will all depend on who the the director of football is, not the manager director, the director of football is. But the one thing I've said, and I said it a couple of weeks ago, and I think I said it again last week, we've got some fantastic potentials of director of football coming in. You know, it's not just Emanalo. You know, Luis Campos, who's been linked. Obviously, Rangnick is off to Man United. We've got Enrique, who was at PSG for a short period of time. You know, we've been linked with some fantastic director of football. You know, Mark Overmars, although at the moment it looks like he's not going to move, but some of the best in European football we've been linked with. So any one of them would make a massive difference to the way in which we set our club up and our team and our academy. So not the end of the world.
Yeah, I think it's, obviously we know, you touched on it last night when you did away days and stuff like that. I think I'd rather get the correct director of football in, take the time, because I think, especially if we're looking at Emanalo, and one of the things we touched on with Eddie Howe was our concerns, possibly how he would be perceived in the foreign market. I think this January market coming up is not necessarily a necessity to have the director in place for overseas players, because I think a lot of the players that we'll probably be targeting are, as rumoured this week, proven Premier League players who know the league. And if that's the case, they know Eddie Howe and they know how Eddie Howe works. There was rumours about Kieran Trippier, who I know both of us would have back at the heartbeat, who Eddie Howe knows very well from his days at Burnley, before obviously Trippier went on to Spurs. The links of Tarkovsky, Cody, all those sort of people who are Premier League proven players who would enhance this team now. I think that's what we'll probably be looking at. So I don't mind them taking a little bit of time to get this correct director of football in. But what I would say is, and we know one candidate that won't be coming now is someone we talked a lot about over the last 4 weeks, and it's Ralph Rangnick. And he looks as though he's going to Man United. Deals already been agreed in principle. Yeah. And the interesting thing that I think, we actually mentioned it in our WhatsApp last night, was Man United have gone for a structure how we actually said that could work if we brought Rangnick in. Because we originally thought the director of football was probably the most important appointment. But obviously, because how a dire situation we were on the pitch, we've done it the other way around. So we had suggested bringing Rangnick in as a stopgap coach, possibly as an interim, and then move him upstairs. And that's exactly what Man United have done. So it's nice to see that Man United have been watching Loaded Mag, and as a heads up to how to set the management structure up. So it's nice to know. So obviously Jamie's watching the show and feeding back to Sir Alex and Ed Woodward and stuff, and the Glazers. So that's Jamie. Will give you a shout out. Thank you very much, mate. But in all seriousness, it's one thing we have seen, though. Yes, it might be slow moving on the director of football front, but we are seeing stuff getting done at the club. And this week we saw some goings on at St James's Park and some improvements near the changing rooms. So it looks as though it's going to be a fantastic new fitness suite attached to the home dressing room. It's not an extension of Alan Saint-Maximin's wardrobe, like a few people have said, for his headbands and boots and stuff like that, and Tag Heuer watches, the next fan he might see in a few weeks' time. It is a fitness suite. Now, something that a lot of clubs have already got, but obviously we've been in the Jurassic stages over the last 14 years. So we are playing catch up. Now, one thing that is obviously it's going to help with recovery to the players, before matches on cold days, because obviously the furthest north Premier League club, we need to get our players warmed up, and if that helps us as an advantage when we get on the pitch against any of the away teams, especially the London clubs and people like that who don't like coming to the cold northeast, that can work wonders for us. Also, the recovery time as well. Hopefully, there's a bit more than a few paddling pools and wheelie bins to go in there as well. But also the fact that there's rumours going on that Eddie Howe wants to actually have more training sessions at St James's Park as well, so players can feel even more comfortable in the surroundings. They can work on direct tactics, obviously working on an exact scale of the pitch and how they want to play it. So that's fantastic to see. What did you make of that when you saw that during the week, Pete?
I was really happy to hear that. You mentioned about training at St James's Park. Now, look, we're in a dogfight right now, and our home games are going to be crucial in whether we stay in this league or not. It depends. Doesn't matter what team we play. Obviously, coming up, next two home games are pretty big for us. Tuesday home to Norwich. At the weekend, next weekend we're at home to Burnley. They're must-win games, but every home game in the build-up to this to the end of the season is going to be massive. Man United come to us in a number of weeks' time. That's a massive game. All of these home games are potential winning games, and there's no better way in getting those points, in getting the players accustomed to playing at St James's Park, and not just accustomed to playing with St James's Park on the stadium, like on the pitch and the stadium. It's playing at St James's Park in the way that Eddie Howe wants us to play. So it was so noticeable on Saturday, the way that we played, how high up the defensive line was compared to normal. The defensive line normally sits on the 18-yard box and are easily pushed back as a defensive unit. We weren't. We spent most of the game high up towards the halfway line to push our attacking players forward, to press high up the pitch, to win the ball high up the pitch. There's no better way of getting used to and being accustomed to playing that way than training on that pitch and playing and training with that style, with that formation, and being in that position. If you're training on the pitch in that formation, in that setup, it makes it easier on game day because you've already done it and you've done it for so long and so many times. And when you come up against the likes of Norwich, the likes of Burnley, and other teams that are going to come to St James's Park, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, teams like that you think that you can get a result against. That is where we're going to make the difference, and that is where it could be the difference between us staying in the league and not. So I really like that way of thinking. And you know what? There's a lot of managers that have been and gone previously that haven't, even thought of doing something like that. So it just goes to show that the type of, managerial ability that Eddie Howe has, and how he's thinking and how progressive he's thinking, and how much he wants us to be sort of changing our mentality in the way that we're playing. So it's great to see. Really, really, really pleased to see. What do you think? What do you think, Richie?
I think it's fantastic. And as I said, it's about time, to be fair. That, okay, some of the other infrastructure stuff that we know is going to be long-term plans, such as the training ground, any other modifications that could be to St James's Park, because I think they'll want to get all the views of the fans first. They'll want to find out whether, would they be happy to move stadiums if that was, if they felt that was the right way to take the club forward. But I think what they'll do is, as they've done so far with the managerial appointment and obviously the search for director of football, they will explore every single avenue possible before coming to a decision. So seeing these sort of things like a fitness suite going to the club, it's a minor change, really, but it's something that can benefit the team drastically. As I mentioned in the lead up in that little segment, the weather conditions this type of year up here, like we've got a storm on at the minute, and we've just been hit by Storm Arwen this afternoon, so we're getting gusts of 70, 80 miles an hour at the minute, and it's absolutely Baltic as well up here. So stuff like that. There's people who aren't. There's going to be teams that come up here who ain't going to fancy playing this and that. So little stuff like where we can get our players warmed up, over the opposition. It might be, as you said, Pete. It's fine margins, and it's little things that we see from the new consortium and Eddie Howley's coaching staff, which we're trying to get as much as possible. I think how many times have we read in articles? It's all about getting that extra little 3% out of the players. If you can improve 1% every single week, how much that player's development can be. So I think it's fantastic to see. Hopefully, obviously it was mentioned when the picture came out during the week that it's hopefully going to be ready for the Norwich game on Tuesday. To be fair, I'm no builder, electrician, or anything like that, but when I saw that picture, I was like, there's not a cat and else chance that's going to be ready for Norwich. But you know what I mean? They could be working around the clock. We don't know. But I think it's all positive, mate. Absolutely all positive. So,
one of the comments that I saw when the picture went up is that obviously it was great to see anyway that they're making like drastic changes to inside St James's Park. One of the comments I saw was that they're looking to do something similar to what Man City have done with their players, and you look at what Man City have built in their infrastructure of what they've created over the last 7 to 10 years at the Etihad, and you think, you know what, if we're modelling ourselves on what Man City have got in terms of what they've built, then we're not doing so bad. We're going in the right direction, because the infrastructure that they've built over the last 10 years has been, it's been groundbreaking. Let's be honest. If you've ever been to the Etihad, I've been a couple of times, and you look at the facilities that they've got within the stadium. You look at the outside of the stadium. That was derelict before. The Etihad was derelict in and around it, but you go there, they've got the metro or the tram, should I say, that takes you right to the stadium. But when you come out of the stadium, you've got the Academy Stadium that could be deceived as being a championship stadium, which is how good it is. Their Academy Stadium and the women's team play there as well. The infrastructure in and around the stadium, they've got the fan zone where you've got live bands playing and all the rest of it. What they've built is amazing, and if we can build something similar to that in and around St James's Park, but certainly more importantly, with reference to the players, if we can build the facilities to be up there with Man City's inside the stadium, to give the players exactly what they need in the run up to the game. So they're looking at a fitness studio. So if the players can get warmed up using that fitness studio, it will mean that there's less injuries. It means that the players are warmed up before the game. On a cold day, like you said, with the winds going, the under-23s have just had their game abandoned because of how bad the weather is. But if they can get warmed up inside their changing rooms, and then get their kit on and then go out and perform at the level that it's expected, these little things, these are small margins, but they make a massive difference in terms of the output of the players and how they perform, but more importantly, how they feel. If they look at the facilities around them and they think, wow, this is amazing. Like, we've got all this around us to give us the best opportunity to be successful. They're going to love that. But you know who's going to love it? Players that are going to come in. Players that are going to be signed, that are going to come into the club and they're going to look at the facilities and go, yeah, this is going in the right direction right now. So looking at January, these guys are going in the right direction. And then in a year's time, we're going to be sat in a year's time, on a Friday night, flagship show, loaded mag, and then we're going to have players going to be there, and the club's going to be transformed again in the next year, and they're going to go, yeah, that club's going in the right direction, and we're going to be talking about it again. And that's exactly what we need to see from this ownership. And they just keep giving these little nuggets of gold in these little things that they're building time and time again, week by week, day by day. And all it does is reaffirm to me that these are the right guys that are owning this club. What do you think, Rich?
I completely agree with you. I think, how many times that there was polls done regards to, was this consortium the right consortium for Newcastle? And pretty much we all turned out, was 97% of the fan base wanted this consort, they wanted this takeover for this very reason. We knew that Maydad and Amanda had fallen in love with Newcastle that day when they came and sat in the Milburn stand against Liverpool. Yes, it was a 0-0 draw, but they were able to see what this place could be, what St James's Park can be. To be fair, I think in the 3 games that we've had at St James's since they've taken over, it's gradually got better and better as an atmosphere as well. Yeah. Obviously, you're not going to be able to change that first game when they came in and you had all the major members of the consortium there, and the atmosphere was electric. I remember when we were all talking, the arms on the hairs on our arms all standing then, because it was that feeling back again that we had belief. We were going back to the entertainers days and the Robson days where you actually looked forward to go to Newcastle. You looked forward to go to, thinking we might actually get something today. So on that sort of foot, that's brilliant. And obviously, when we look at the game last week, it's a fantastic atmosphere as well. We actually got to experience it firsthand last week. Unfortunately, Eddie couldn't experience that, but that could work in our favour on Tuesday night, because it could give that extra lift again that we need in a 6-pointer. Can you believe it? We're talking about a 6-pointer at the end of November. Well, two 6-pointers in the space of 4 days in November and December. Do you know what I mean? But they could be the crowd. Eddie Howe being in charge on the actual touchline as well. We saw and we heard about the little changes he made from his hotel room when we went behind, and we brought we still got to start the game. But just going back to what we were saying before about getting the best out of all of the players that we have. Jeff, who we had the pleasure of meeting last week at the NUFC Matters Christmas party, number of weeks equals 1% equals improvement. Yeah. And if you look at how that first week on the training ground up until the Bournemouth game, we could see that improvement straight away on the pitch. We've all laughed at the bleep tests that we saw when the first day they come in. We saw them, struggling to breathe and coughing their guts up and stuff like that. And it might be the sadistic side of the fan base that got off on that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's good to see that what they're trying to improve the fitness as well, as not as just the technical side of the game as well. And I think if you actually, obviously as we were at the game, Pete, we didn't look leggy near the end of the game. We were still full of running, and once we got equalised, we seemed to be the only team that looked as though we were going to go on and possibly get all 3 points. But also talking about percentages as well, we've got Tony in the chat has said 10% improvement by taking Darlow out. So this is going to be something that we're going to touch on in a little bit, because we've got a little bit of a new segment we're going to go over with you shortly. So that's something that we will keep in mind there. But and people have been caught as well. Darlow's been terrible since coming back and stuff like that. And the one thing, and this was a concern when I read it today in the Chronicle, because my thoughts were Dubravka needs to come in straight away. I know you're exactly the same as that. You've got to have your best goalkeeper, an international goalie, on the start between the sticks. We've seen over numerous seasons how much difference he makes to the back line, how many extra shots he saves compared to Darlow and stuff like that. But then I read today that Darlow's sitting on 99 games for Newcastle United. And automatically I thought, it's a Steve Bruce 999 games as well, aren't they? Are they going to be nice and give him his 100th before they never let him play for Newcastle again? To be honest with you, I hope he stays on 99 unless something drastically bad happens to Dubravka with touch wood. I hope it's not going to happen. But I just one of those little thoughts. I just put a little doubt in my head. I'm thinking, I hope it's not going to happen. I don't know what you, Pete, but can you see them changing? Do you think Eddie Howe will be ruthless like we both hope?
Darlow can't start tomorrow, Rich. Darlow cannot
No,
start tomorrow.
doesn't mean he won't.
We are throwing 3 points away with Darlow in goal. I'm sorry. Like, look, he had a good first half of the season last season, but we saw in a number of the games turn in January, and we talked about it on the Matchday Lives about how he dropped off massively. And a lot of fans in this last week have talked about the pressure that's probably been put on him since Dubravka's back, because Dubravka was on the bench. He was ready to go. He was ready to play. And they went with Darlow, and fair play to them. They made that decision. They made the difficult decision. Dubravka wasn't there for the 2 weeks of training. But for me, I cannot see anything other than a Dubravka start. Rich, don't wind me up, right? If I travel down and I see at what 11 that Darlow is starting, I'm coming for you, because I'm going to blame you. It's your fault.
Yeah.
You brought it up.
Blame the Chronicle. They're the one that brought it out. I wouldn't have known either way until I'd read it this afternoon. But you know what I mean, But
and you know what? I wouldn't have heard it if you'd have not said it right now. But no, in all seriousness, look, you are absolutely right, Rich. Dubravka is the best goalkeeper at the club. Now, look, you go through all the teams. You go through all the teams, whether they're in the bottom half of the table or the top half of the table, right? Let's say, for example, Man United go for a really difficult time at the moment, right? Do they drop David De Gea and put Dean Henderson in? I don't think they do. Does Chelsea drop Mendy and put Kepa in? I don't think they do. You could go through all the teams. You could go through Meslier, at Leeds. You've got a number of other clubs that have got goalkeepers that are pretty decent as a backup, but not the same quality. We'd be the only team that would do that. I don't think any team would do that. You play your best goalkeeper when they are fit. Dubravka has been fit now for probably about 4 weeks. That's enough for him to start playing. Like, he's the best goalkeeper, significantly better. And with a game against Arsenal at the Etihad, the Emirates Stadium, you need to play your best goalkeeper. So he has to start. That is like, I'm not even thinking that that's even going to be anything other than a Dubravka start. It just cannot be. And Chris A has put in the chat that he had the same thought as me.
He was more me, actually, but never mind.
Yeah, he had the same thought as you. Sorry, that he's on 99 games. Could he start? This is not a Steve Bruce era now. This is not a Steve Bruce organisation. Eddie Howe, in the way that he's spoken, in the way in which he conducts himself, is all about results. And if he's all about results, he will make the right decision, and that is Dubravka in goal.
Yeah, I think to be fair, Taggy Vivid in chat actually called it probably the perfect, alternative. He gets his 100th game in the FA Cup third round. No, I don't think anybody. No, do you not? No. Do you not think it would depend on who we get? Do you not think it would depend on who we get drawn against?
I think no. I don't think it is. I don't care if it's a lower team. I don't care if it's a Premier League team. I don't care if it's a Championship team. Right. This is a great opportunity for us to have a go at a cup without the restraints of Mike Ashley saying you've got to play your reserve side, or you've got to play this side, or you've got to play that side. It is up to Eddie Howe in how he puts his team together. Now, he might well put Darlow in goal. He might even go Freddie Woodman. Who knows? But for me, personally, I don't think a game, whether it's Premier League, whether it's FA Cup, is massively taxing on a goalkeeper. So I don't think there's any need to change a goalkeeper. Now, if you've got Martin Dubravka in goal for the FA Cup third round, you've got a better chance of getting through that next round into the fourth round of the Cup. So for me, I wouldn't change the goalkeeper. I would always stick to my strongest goalkeeper. If you're changing other players on the pitch for the FA Cup third round, fine. But you always stick with your best goalkeeper. For me, I don't think he plays. For me, I'll be honest, unless there's an injury, I don't see Darlow playing for the club again. I see, and we've talked about it before, we've got a full 25-man squad that we need to get rid of some players. I talked about the likes of Dwight Gale. I talked about the likes of Kieran Clark. I would throw Carl Darlow into that as well. They're players that I think could quite easily lead the club. Hendrick being one of them as well. That's 4 players out. That's potentially 4 signings that could come in that could significantly change the squad of our players. So for me, I don't see him playing again. I think we can get a little bit of money from Darlow. Darlow this time last year was being talked about the England squad. I'm not saying he's there, and I don't think he was good enough for that at that point in time. But that would be enough for us to command a little bit of money from him. 7.5 million, 8 million to a championship club, maybe. I think a deal could be done there. And what it does, it opens up a place for us to go out and buy an outfield player, a significantly better outfield player that could make a difference to our team and actually push us up the table and hopefully keep us in the league.
Another twist, though, because I think the third round of the FA Cup's not until about the 10th of January, that sort of time. Who's to say? I've got rumours are going. We haven't got another goalkeeper on our books by then. We don't know. There's been a few linked to us. We don't know. So you never know. There could be another number 2, another number 1. We don't know. But I think I completely agree with you. I wouldn't be changing the goalie once to Brav, because then I'd be keeping them there. Mainly because if you start to get, we've got a hard run in through December, and we need to get the team playing as much as we can together so they know the systems that Eddie wants to play and stuff like that, and the same sort of personnel. So try to keep that as, making changes because it's the FA Cup third round, and, we'd love to have a cup run and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I don't think a cup run is our priority this year. I think we're going to have to probably knock it on the head, and hopefully this will be the last season where we're actually going to be able to, not have to, just turn it on FA Cup third round, whenever it is, and just say, we're not going to put the effort on it. Next year we could be realistic, go over it. But to be fair, we don't know. Eddie might be able to get a lot out of these players, get them on a roll and stuff like that. And you never know. The second half of the season, with a few additions to the team as well, we might have a cup run. But as we always say, let's look at the next game first, and that's Arsenal, and that's tomorrow. Now, just before we move on to the game, I wanted to say thank you very much to CFC Florida for $10 super stick. Much appreciated, mate. Anyone that wants to make any support towards the channel, it's greatly appreciated. Me, Pete, Daz, Martin, Chris. We give it our time. We don't get paid for it. All the hard work that goes on behind the scenes that you see 2, 3, 4 times a week, we do it for the love of it, because we love talking about the team that we all love. So it's nice to get little donations and stuff like that, because it means the world. So it means that you actually like what we're putting out there. So thank you very much, CFC Florida. While we're on, we'll just go over through some of the sponsorship now we've got. Now, what we always say is there's only one Bruce in, and it's always going to be the case going forward, and that's to Bruce at Central Ale, based in Central Station next to Sainsbury's. Pop in. Yep, as you can see, Pete's pointing out the logo in the top right-hand corner there as well. Pop in to see him. He's got some fantastic craft beers, ciders, vodkas, gins, and all that sort of stuff. Tell him that you've seen us on Loaded Mag. Send him in. You never know. He might even give you a nice little discount on that. You don't know, or a bundle. But I always say my motto, Shy Ben's getting out. So give it a shout. Tell him that you saw him, and tell him Bruce in. Okay. So we'll go on to, while we're talking, if you like the channel and you haven't subscribed already, just click the like and subscribe button. As you know now as well, we also have a membership as well that, as I said, we give up our time for free. If you feel that you want to contribute towards it, join the channel as well. There's a little button next to the like button where you can subscribe. What the one thing we actually do is, obviously, we added the incident yesterday, unfortunately, with Bronwyn, where our sponsor, going for 1892 United, unfortunately, has had to go on the back burner. But there's obviously, she's working with a lot of things going on in the background there. Hopefully, we'll get that sorted out, whether it be a new brand or whatever. However, that will still apply. We will still have a monthly sponsor prize draw that will be exclusive to load my members. So if that's something you want to take part in each month, if you want to, as I said, you don't have to. You can continue to watch the shows that we put out there, like we do now. We'll happily let you do that. But if you want to feel like you want to contribute, by all means, that'd be fantastic. And help us get to 2,000 subs if possible. We've made great strides over the last recent months and stuff like that. And we want to keep going in this sort of route and growing, and we need your support to do that. So if there's anyone out there who hasn't actually watched the show, tell them to come have a watch, sit down and enjoy us and see what you think. So, as I mentioned, Pete, it's Arsenal tomorrow, and there's a certain return for Joe Willock to the Emirates. Now, during the week, it was mentioned, Mikel Arteta had mentioned that he'd had been in contact with Joe Willock a few weeks ago in the build-up to it, because they said that what sort of reception he was going to get and stuff. I just hope it wasn't to pick out any bones of what sort of tactics he's got because of any allegiance he may feel as though he has to Arsenal from the past. But no, in all seriousness, do you think Willock plays tomorrow, and do you think you'll get a good reception when he goes back?
He definitely gets a good reception. I don't know if you remember, if anyone in the chat remembers as well, the outpour that he got from the Arsenal fans when he put the video up when he left the club, of his time at Arsenal, obviously from being a little child all the way up to being in the first team. I just thought was really classy from the Arsenal fans and classy from the club. So 100% he gets a great reception. And because of that, I feel that he has to play. He has to play. Look, we are looking for our first win of the season. Now, we can talk about Willock's performance at Brentford. It wasn't the best. But if you're ever looking for someone to rejuvenate themselves in the season, it's against your old club that you support, your old club that you love to bits. That is the one game in any season that you are really going to kind of raise your game for 100%. And I fully expect him to start at the Emirates. And you know what? I think on the away days yesterday, I put him down to score the winner. And it really wouldn't surprise me if he gets a goal tomorrow. And you know what? I hope he does. I hope he sticks it to the Arsenal fans. And I hope he gets the result that wins us the points, our first win of the season, and shows them that actually, they maybe should have took a chance on him. But actually, he's a Geordie boy now.
He certainly is. And just as we go on before we bring up the new segment, Shane, all the way from down in Oz, much appreciated for becoming a member of the channel, mate. We know it's early morning for you over there, and actually a more suitable kick-off time for you tomorrow. So you'll actually not have to stay up till the early hours of the morning. I do know what that feels like because I'm a big NFL fan, and my team, unfortunately, is from the West Coast, so we've had all the late kick-offs. So I know exactly how you feel, and I know what that passion means. So it's much appreciated, Shane, that you're staying up all these hours to watch our shows, to watch the team every single week. So much appreciated, Sean. Keep it up, mate. So as I said, we've got a new little segment that we've talked about doing it for a while now, and we've actually, as I mentioned, this is a new segment. Now, what we're going to do is there's a few different pictures that we're going to bring up here. By all means, we love it when you put your opinions in the chat because it gives us something to flow from. These are just mine and Pete's ideas. Okay, if you agree with them, fantastic. If you don't, you don't. Me and Pete don't always agree either, and you'll probably see that from when we put the pictures up. But this is our fantastic new section we've talked about doing for a while. And as we've mentioned before, we're both grassroots coaches. We like watching other coaches and stuff like that. So here is Loaded Mag Coach's Corner.
Hey.
So there you go, Coach's Corner, Pete. So what we wanted to start with was, this is how we set up last week. And, when we saw that the team was announced and stuff like that, I don't think anybody pictured a 3-4-3, did they? Realistically.
Definitely
not. We thought, when we saw the lineup, it was possibly a 5 at the back and stuff like that again. How surprised were you when you saw Eddie Howe set up as a 3-4-3. Bear in mind, we've watched a lot of stuff about Eddie Howe, and we've never really seen a 3-4-3 in it. So I know I was surprised. What did you think? Bear in mind, you'd probably got more of a surprise when you actually realised it was 10-3 when you realised they were playing a 3-4-3.
Like, you don't need to remind me. I was hanging out of my backside on Saturday. As I've already said, I got out of bed at 1:45. I was meant to be meeting you guys at 1:00. It never happened. I managed to stumble up to St. James's Park at about 2:45, 2:50. And yeah, I was on the metro over from South Shields over to the Monument to walk in, and I was surprised, genuinely surprised. And you know what? It was very, very clear, from the journalists and other people that put the squad out, that it was 3-4-3. They made it clear that it was a 3-4-3, and that emphasised that they were looking to be attacking. It was a surprise, I have to be honest, but I was excited by it because look, this is not a Steve Bruce error. This is not a Mike Ashley error. This is a forward-thinking, attacking-minded manager that wants the best out of these players. So yeah, I was surprised, but I was also happy, and I think that could be a formation that we use going forward a lot, particularly at home. I think that's a formation that I think is a very front foot attacking minded formation that we don't just use against the teams like Brentford, that we use against every team in the way that we play, because I think that shows Eddie Howe in the way in which he likes to play. Now, that's a formation that he doesn't normally play a lot, but I think more than anything, and I don't know if you agree with this, Rich, that I saw that as a signal of Eddie Howe's maturity as a manager. He talked about, before he became manager of Newcastle United, how he'd spent time with Maurizio Sarri in Italy, that he'd spent time with Rayo Vallecano in Spain, and Atletico Madrid and various other teams. And he was trying to improve and hone his skills as a tactical manager. I saw that formation as a maturity, as an evolution of his tactical ability, and I was quite excited by that. So yeah, like I said, I don't know what you think about that, but that was certainly my thoughts as I saw it.
Yeah, I did as well, because as you mentioned, he said he went away, he didn't just sit on his backside for 16 months after leaving Bournemouth. He did his homework. He visited as many coaches as he could. He wanted to stay, keep up to date with your tactical tweaks here and there in formations and personnel and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's good that as we said, he's a forward-thinking coach. And I think what you'll see is as we go through this segment, he does that. He's not rigid. He has to stick in one formation. Now, going off this formation, I thought we looked fantastic against Brentford last week. It was only defensive mistakes, which we've touched on in the review show the other day, and we've touched on briefly in this sort of, you look at Darlow, really, I still, he's fault for the first goal. He should never let a shot from that angle go through you. And also for the third goal, people were saying, Onyeka got through, two soft tackles and stuff. But we mentioned in the review show that would never have happened if Darlow hadn't been stuck to his 6-yard line at the very start of the move. If he'd come out, put the ball in the stand, we wouldn't have been talking like that. But so realistically, you look at, we possibly should have won that game. As we know, we had a chance cleared off the line by Tony as well from Wilson. So it was a fantastic performance. The first time in a long time when we've had most possession in a game over not just a team of around in and around us. One about a team full stop. We're used to having less of the ball, so it was nice to actually see us with the ball for a change. Yeah. Now, what I did was that I looked at that game, and then I looked at how people that were probably missing that would enhance that, or change the game when they came on. And I tweaked it a little bit just to this formation. I just thought, obviously, bring Dubravka back. Fernandez is by head and shoulders above Clark in there. It's a bit, he's more solid. And I was really, really surprised the way Fraser was when he came on. Every time he got the ball, he looked as though he wanted to put it into the danger zone for someone to get on the end of it and tack it. the ball in for Sam Maxim's equaliser was a fantastic ball. I don't know. Would that have been some of your thinking after the game on Saturday? Were those a similar sort of tweaks that you would have made to that starting line? Possibly.
You know what? I've got to be honest, Rich. Obviously, we'll put my formation up in a second, but if it was going to be a 3-4-3, that's exactly the team that I'd have gone for. It's exactly the same. So you know what? The coach's corner has got off to a great start because we are on the same wavelength, 110%. I would have definitely brought Dubravka in. That's a given. Fernandes would have definitely come on the left-hand side. And you look, it's not. If you're looking for balance, you want a left-footed player on the left-hand side of the back three. So ideally, if he was fit, you probably would have put Dummett there. But
I agree.
Experienced, quality defender, and he's significantly better than Kieran Clark, even without the left foot. So I would play him. It's as simple as that. And actually, interestingly, in pre-season, Shaw played on the left-hand side of the back three. And Shaw played those switch play balls from the right hand side, cutting in on his right foot onto the right hand side of the pitch. So there's an option to potentially put Shaw on the left hand side of the back three and Fernandes in a more comfortable position, purely because Shaw's better on the ball. So if you're receiving the ball in a tough situation, Shaw's got a better touch, Shaw's got a better pass. So if you're playing him on the left-hand side, he can play a quicker pass, a quicker touch, a quicker ball with his right or left foot. So you'd probably be better off playing him there and playing Fernandes on the right. So that's just something, obviously, that potentially, if that formation is set out on Saturday, that could be an option. But yeah, you know, Ryan Fraser's played right wing back for Scotland a number of times, so he knows how to play that position. He's actually played a couple of times in that position for Eddie Howe at Bournemouth as well, so he knows that position. And you know, we've already seen his quality. He's a fantastic assist on Saturday for Alan St-Maximin. So yeah, the rest of the team for me stays the same. You could argue that maybe Jamal Lewis plays ahead of Richie, but I think the fact that Richie is in the top 3 for chances created in the Premier League this season, not just in Newcastle, but the Premier League, always puts him ahead of Lewis in the pecking order. And to be fair, he created a number of chances on Saturday, so he keeps his place.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we discussed last week is we think possibly Richie stayed because Lewis had been away with Northern Ireland. So Howe hadn't had a chance to really work with him. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Richie get there again tomorrow because Eddie Howe's been away from the training ground from Lewis and hasn't been able to see him firsthand. He's obviously going to be relying on a lot of feedback from obviously the coaching staff and stuff like that. As we said, we can't always agree on everything. You know what I mean? We both go on that sort of thing. But that's only if we were making changes to that sort of formation from what we saw, you know, during the game and what we think, you know, could go forward with what we got fit. So,
you know what? I'd be interested. Sorry to interrupt. I'd be interested to know what Yano's team would be. So Yano, look,
as I said, Yano put it in the chat. Put it in the chat and your formation.
I'm a massive supporter of Lodi. He's on every time we do a show. Massive support. Got massive respect for him. Put your team in the chat. This is what it's about. It's about differences of opinion. So myself and Richie have put a team out. You don't agree with it, and that's absolutely fine. You're more than entitled to not agree with that. I'm sure there's plenty of us that don't agree with that as well, but there might be one or two that do. Put your team in the chat. It'd be great to discuss that. Actually, anybody, you know, we've got Eric Shawn, we've got Yano, we've got Ian McKenna, we've got Alan Thompson, who's you know, a massive supporter as well, like Yano. Jeff, massive supporter like those guys as well. Many others. Dunhill, who's a new member in the chat. You guys, whack your team in. You whack your team in. Chris Hall, legend, member of Loaded. Get your teams in, and we can look at that. Shane, new member, whack your teams in, and we can discuss that because everybody's got a difference of opinion. And you know what? Nobody knows. Only Eddie Howe and his coaching staff knows what team we're going to play on Saturday, and nobody will know until 11:30 in the morning what team's going to be put out there. So come on. Get your teams out there. Let's see them all. Let's discuss them, and we'll go from there.
So, leading on Arsenal, what I decided to do is to get an idea of what Eddie Howe has done against Arsenal before. I went back to the last season when he was in charge of Bournemouth to see how he set his teams up against Arsenal, to see whether it's something we possibly could do similar, or is it completely left field with what he went with last week. So at home, I don't know, people obviously might not be able to make it out here. They got a 1-1 draw against Arsenal. He set the team up as a 4-5-1. So we all know he likes his 4 at the back, which that's why we were surprised last week with him going 3 at the back. And I think on this one, I would have thought this was more of a setup for going to the Emirates rather than trying to be like that from at home sort of thing, Pete. I don't know what you thought, but then you go to the Emirates, and he sets up as his normal 4-4-2. So you can see that he's not stuck in his ways every single week, and he'll change it to what he thinks fit for the game plan, whether it's home or away, personnel that playing against and stuff like that. So could you see him using either of those formations tomorrow?
Mikel Arteta?
No, Eddie Howe. Similar sorts of formations against Arsenal tomorrow.
Against Mikel Arteta, possibly. I think one of the things against some of the top teams is that he likes to keep those big teams guessing. And, you know, the one thing I've talked about over the last sort of couple of days is that Mikel Arteta will look at this team, look at Newcastle and think, okay, they're going to put 5 men behind the ball. They're going to do a low block. They're going to sit on the 18-yard box, and they're going to sit. And eventually, we're going to break them down, whether it's in the 40th, 50th, 60th, or 70th minute. We will get the goals that will win us the game. Just as you saw last season under Bruce in the FA Cup, we dominated at times. We were the better team. We should have won the game, but yet eventually they did win because we had the low block. In the second game, we had the low block and ended up destroying us. This is a different team. So I think that Eddie Howe will go into this game like he has as manager of Bournemouth against a lot of the top teams, and he's got results against them. Yes, he's got beat, but he's got results against them as well. And he keeps them guessing. He puts teams out that keeps them guessing. So it might even be that we get the formation at 11:30, and it looks like a certain formation. So it might look like a 3-4-3. But actually, when the team sets up in the way in which they play and the way in which they interchange, it might look very different. It might even turn into a 4-4-2. It might even, I don't know, it might even look like a 3-4-3, but in transitions, we played very differently, because that's the modern game now, is that we set up as a 3-4-3 when we're attacking, when we've got the ball and we're moving forward. But when we've lost possession, we then might sit back into a 4-4-2. And this is the intriguing part, because we're looking at the likes of, previous managers like Steve Bruce, like Steve McLaren, like, even Chris Hughton and various other managers that like to stick to a formation. It's an old school way of thinking. Eddie Howe's a modern manager, and there's a lot of transitions in between games, during games. Like we saw on Saturday, we were a 3-4-3. We brought Ryan Fraser on. We changed into a 4-4-2, transitioned, and we still look just as effective, just as attacking minded, but in a different formation. It's going to be really, really interesting. I can't say for sure what it's going to be or what it's going to look like, or whether he's going to stick to that formation, because he is a very progressive manager, and I think there's a lot of moving parts to the way in which he manages his teams, and certainly Newcastle on Saturday.
I think what's quite interesting, because obviously you touched on that, and this obviously I asked you what your 11 would be for tomorrow, and you went for a traditional 4-4-2. So I'll put your team up now, and you can talk around your thinkings on this.
Okay, so 4-4-2, very, very traditional, very traditional in its mindset. And you know what? there's a reason why I've gone for a 4-4-2. And looking at the 3-4-3, one of the things that I noticed being in the stadium, in the Leazes End, looking down in the upper Leazes at the game as it was unfolding, the one thing that happened that Brentford really took advantage of is those little pockets behind the midfield two, and in front of the centre backs. So what was very, very clear that Thomas Frank had said to his forward line is that one striker stretches the play, and it was Malumbo, I think his name is. I apologise, I can't pronounce his name right. Malumbo was stretching the play with his pace going forward. But what Ivan Toney was doing is just dropping deep. So he was dropping deep. The centre backs weren't following him. So that little pocket in between the likes of Lascelles and Clark, and in between Willock and Shelvey, he was just constantly picking up the ball, unchallenged, and able to turn and spray the play wide, get into the box, and they were attacking that way. A lot of the time it didn't come to anything, but he got a lot of the ball and a lot of the play. The reason why I think it will be a 4-4-2 is because when we haven't got Ivan Toney dropping into that space there, right there, we've got Emil Smith-Rowe, who is a talented boy. We know that. We've got Odegaard, who equally is a talented boy coming from Real Madrid. So you got those guys dropping into those pockets. You cannot allow those two type of players that love to play in the pocket space to allow them to have ball and time on the ball in those pockets of space. So we need to shore up that pocket of space. Okay, so having a 4-4-2, having someone that's going to sit a little bit deeper in the likes of Shelvey, I think would be a great opportunity to block that space up. And having a two centre backs would allow one of them to be able to come out and track that, and the rest of them sit in. So I just think having a set unit will stop that type of player coming in and getting a lot of drawing on the ball. And if we set up as a unit, it will allow us to be able to set ourselves and allow us to later on in the game really go forward and try and win it later on. Because speaking to the Arsenal fans, Curran on the Arsenal chat, and then talking to him again tonight on his show, Balls Over Passion, the one thing they talked about as an Arsenal team is that they drift and they die off as the game goes on. So I believe, in my opinion, and I could be completely wrong come the time that 11:30 and the teams put out there, is that I believe we will go 4-4-2, stay solid as a unit, stay hard to beat, and then as the game drifts on, we might then transition into a 3-4-3 and think, you know what, if we're still in the game here, or we're even winning, or it's 0-0, let's go for them, because they tire and they drift off as the game goes on, and we can maybe nick it later on in the game. That's just my thought. I could be completely wrong here, but I'm just thinking with Eddie Howe and his way in which he tactically puts his teams together, that might be his thinking in terms of transitioning from a 4-4-2 into a 3-4-3 later on in the game, and trying to nick the game later on with our attacking players. As you said, Richie, you were absolutely right. We looked a lot fitter going into the last parts of the game. You look at Maximin's run late on in the game at 80 minutes when he put Joe Linton through, and unluckily he missed that chance to win us the game. If we can do that later on in the game, when traditionally Arsenal tire, we could potentially nick something.
No, I completely agree with you. Now, what I did was I obviously looked at how we've set against it before. Now, I think obviously you start to go up against bigger sides, and sometimes you tend to think that the lesser teams in the Premier League, try and possibly defend deep and stuff like that. Now, I don't think we'll do that. We're not going to go back to the days of Rafa and Bruce where we sit, really deep and let teams come on to us. I don't think that. However, what I did when I set my team up, I thought we'd go for a 4-3-3. However, I believe it'll be a 4-3-3 in attack in the counter and stuff like that. But we could see it more like the Bournemouth one I've just shown as a 4-5-1 when we're defending. So the two wingers will drop in, and then obviously we can compact the middle. Now, to do that, I actually felt that because we've got the back four, I brought Hayden back in just to give that a little bit. As you mentioned, Smith Rowe in the pocket between the middle two. We tend to, we always believe we need someone to sit and give a little bit of protection to our back two. So that's why I brought Hayden back in. Obviously, I know you had Fraser, who, to be fair, I thought was fantastic when he came on last week. To be fair, Hayden was unlucky to be dropped, really, because he's been one of our better midfielders and most consistent this season. But possibly in that system where he wants to play on the front foot a lot more, Hayden's not going to be in there. However, for this sort of game, he'd probably be ideal for that protection that you need for the defence going forward, because we, as you said, Smith Rowe, you've got Lacazette, good people with movement. In the Odegaard, as you mentioned as well, they move around constantly. So keeping compact and narrow, it makes it harder to play through you. So that's why I was thinking more of a 4-3-3 on the counter, but it could be where Joe Linton and Sam Maxwell will automatically just come back and drop deep to create as a 5 in front of that 4. But because obviously we've seen the fitness levels go up, as we said, with Sam Maxwell and Joe Linton, you could see that transition, as you mentioned, Pete, as the game goes on, where they're tiring and our fitness levels is hopefully better than what they're, where we could push on to be more of a 3-4, a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3 if you want to change it tactically. So, yes, two different sort of formations, but very, very similar way of thinking. I think we'd probably agree on that. So, look,
100%.
Yano mentioned he didn't like our formation. I don't know whether he said it, but I did notice he put his own in the chat. Did you see? Go on. I don't know if you've got up, you can talk through it, because he did a couple actually.
Hold on 1 second. I just need to find it. Okay. Hold on. I think that's the second of the two.
That's
so
the second one. Yeah.
One. Let's get to the first.
All I'll say, Pete, is I'm glad Yano's not picking the team.
Richie's got his own back. He's got his own back. Yano called us out, and Richie's got his own back. I love it. Massive respect, Yano. Appreciate you getting back with your team, and a few others have done the same too. Jeff talks about that he's shy. Come on, Jeff. You know better than that. We talked about this.
He does. He puts it in.
Yeah, but Yano's gone Dubravka. So interesting. He's gone a 3-4-3. Okay, and obviously that's based on, I imagine, what's happened in the Brentford game. So Dubravka in goal, 100% agree. Manquillo, Kraft, Fernandes, Clark, Lewis. Okay, so I'm assuming that Kraft.
You'd be playing Kraft, Fernandes, and Clark as your centre halves. Yeah, your three centre backs.
They're your centre backs. Manquillo, right wing back. Lewis, left wing back. And then you've got Shelvey, Miggy, Joe Linton, Wilson, and ASM. Interesting to see how that forms. So I'm assuming, if I'm wrong in thinking, that Shelvey and Miggy are the midfield two.
Yeah, that looks like the midfield two. Yeah,
with Joe Linton, obviously Wilson and ASM playing is the way in which they did. Interesting team. I'd be interested to know, Yano, why you've played Miggy in the centre midfield, because I'm not disagreeing with it, but I'd be interested to know your reasons why. Because obviously, Miggy's had a lot of stick, not a lot of stick, but there's been a lot of stick at Bruce for playing him as a centre midfielder, because he's not. But I can understand to a point why you would play his qualities there, because of what he gives in terms of his attributes, his work rate and his running. But an interesting team. Interesting to know why you play Kraft. He's obviously got a lot of stick, and not Shaw, for example. I know there's questions about his fitness, but he seems to have been training this week, so he seems to be fit. A couple of questions in there, but I respect that team. I respect the fact that you put your team up. Fair play to you. And then let me go down. He's gone a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
So he's gone Dubravka, Manquillo, Feddy, Clark, and Lewis. Clark, man, why are you playing Clark? Yeah, I know. I wouldn't have been nowhere near the team. He was the big reason we conceded the goals we did. Particularly,
he had a nightmare against Brentford.
It was bad, but yeah, like I say, fair play to you. I'd personally have Lascelles ahead of him or Shaw ahead of Clark in that team. But
I think we both went for Lascelles because Shaw doesn't tend to do well in a 4.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
That's true. And to be fair, I'd probably go ahead at Lascelles ahead of Shaw for that exact reason. He's gone. Okay, so he's gone Shelvey, Fraser, Ritchie is a midfield 3. Interesting. And then Joelinton, Wilson, and ASM. So 2 very different teams there that he's put out. But I'll be interested to see why he's put those teams out there. Not disagreeing with them at all. I think they're 2 very, very interesting teams and definitely 2 different teams to what me and you have put out there, Richie. 100%.
It is. It's great. Do you know what I mean? It's like we said, everyone's got their own opinion. It's good to hear why they have those opinions. It's like like Shane, who joined us tonight. He's made 2 of the changes. I made 3, but he's made 2 that we both agree with: Dubravka and Feddy to come in. And he's literally said because you can't make changes. And do you know what? I can completely see that as well. I just felt that on that 3-4-3 with Fraser to come in, I thought he did more than what Murphy did, and I think it would be nice to see him in that system for a longer period of time rather than what we saw from Murphy. I didn't think Murphy had a fantastic game last week, so that was why we put him in there. Eric's put down. Sorry, I've got off. Go on, put it back on there.
I was gonna put one second.
It's definitely
he's definitely gone for the Y's in there. Ferdy, Lascelles, Shari.
I'm just concerned about Richie's Willie. Look,
yeah. Richie's Willie. I tell you what, get that hashtag. Richie's
I know.
Willie.
I know.
Richie's stories, Willie. Just Richie's Willie. Oh my God!
There you be, Jeff.
Didn't think of that, mate. Shelvey, Frasery, St. Magsy, Callumsy, and Murphy.
No, he's just finished with the boring at the end, Murphy.
Yeah, Murphy. Just what we know and expect. But yeah, fair play to you, Jeff. You finally put a team out there. Sorry, Rich. Go on, put the comment up that you were going to.
No, I was scrolling down on that, but our Avon representatives decided to join in chat again, and he's actually put his formation in as well. And to be fair, it's a formation that we talked a lot about last year. It was a 4-2-3-1, which we agreed on quite a lot. But he's gone with Dubravka and goal, which I think we all agree with. He's gone with the same back 4 that we all went for: Manquillo, Shah, Fernandez, and Ritchie. If we had 4 at the back, he's went with Willock, Shelvey, and Fraser, which I can see as a 3 at work times. I said the reason why I put Hayden in there was because I just felt as that we would need that little bit of solidity around in the gap between the midfield and the back 4. And then ASM, Big Joe Wilson. So very, very similar, setup. You did it in a slightly different way where you've dropped. It looks like you're going to drop Shelvey and Willock a little bit deeper and possibly have Fraser and ASM wide and Big Joe in the number 10. Which, to be fair, the way that Joe played last week, I've never really thought of him as a number 10, but the way he can hold the ball up and he brings the players into it. I think we automatically, whenever we were thinking 4-2-3-1, we always thought Miggy would be the ideal in the number 10 sort of free roaming and creativity role, but it's another aspect. And to be fair, if Eddie Howe can keep Joelinton playing like he did last week, I'd like to see what levels he could get to be fair. I don't know what you think on that, because we both were surprised. I think a lot of Newcastle fans were, because he was definitely man of the match last week.
I'm excited. That's the word I'm going to use. I'm excited by the potential of what Eddie Howe can get out of Joelinton. I think it's very clear from the comments that Eddie Howe made in his press conference. I think even before his press conference, it was very clear from some of the media outlets and some of the journalists that were talking about Joelinton and the way he'd been training. Not just the way he'd been training, but the way he'd been taking a real interest in his stats and the analytical point of view in terms of what he needed to do to improve, what they wanted from him, what he could be better at. He'd been spending a lot of time with the analysts to look at his game and how he could improve it. That had all happened over a 2-week period. And to hear that was really, really pleasing. And to hear that he was training very, very well and looking very, very good in training was even better to hear. What then topped all of that is the performance that we saw on Saturday. So what we've not seen, and look, this has been over 2 years now. The amount of players that have come out and said, Joe Linton in training, fantastic. Like, he is a top player. Like, they rate him. You know, he looks great. The way he performs in training, he gives 100%, all the rest of it. But we just haven't seen it on the pitch. What we saw is a performance of 2 weeks in training and then actually putting it into practice on the pitch. That was the great thing about it. And look, it's one game. Let's be honest, it's one game. But what we need to see and what I expect to see under Eddie Howe is consistency from these players. So I fully expect to see, and I'm not expecting him to go and score 2-3 goals on Saturday, but I'm expecting to see a very similar performance on Saturday from him and from the rest of the players, because that would show that we're moving in the right direction. And actually, we're not going to be like Steve Bruce in that we put one performance in and then the next week we fall apart, that we're able to put back-to-back performances in and show consistency in the way we play. And that's what I want to see more than anything, because that will give me, actually, if we perform like that in consistent games over the course of this season, that we'll get enough points to stay in the league.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. It's good to see that Ian McKenna's been dreaming when he's been picking his team, and it looks like he's picked his team for 5 years' time after the takeover's gone through, with Alphonso Davies at left back, Sule, Mukelele, Livramento at the back, Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, Bellingham in the midfield. Ginola still playing on the left if he's fit. Messi in the middle and Vimeo on the right. Then we'll just stick Shearer up top for the sake of it there. But as you write in, we can dream, can't we? Eric makes a good point as well. We've got the back four is about the last time Fernandes and Lascelles played together this slow. Yeah, we agree on that, but it's depending how you want to set up sort of on that. We don't really have any centre backs with pace at the moment. That's something hopefully we'll address in the next couple transfer windows. And there was another topic I just saw, which where was it? It's gone. It was quite an interesting one actually, but I think it must be further down.
I think there's a few that have put teams in.
Yeah, it was actually. I'll tell you who it was. Where's it gone? It was Kay Moggy actually, and I thought this is very, very interesting point actually, because I had completely forgot. I thought it was harshly booked last week, and it does put my tightrope now. And that's about Wilson.
Great points tonight. He's getting some absolutely spot on points tonight.
I think this is a fantastic point about, would you risk Wilson tomorrow with Norwich and Burnley coming up? Now he's on 4 bookings.
Yeah, I'd not realised that until someone put it on Twitter a few hours ago, and I read that and I was like, "Oh, that's a very, very interesting point." I didn't realise he was on 4 bookings. I know he's quite a bit of a bully type striker up there, but I didn't realise he got 4 bookings so quickly. That is an interesting thing. We do not want to lose him for Norwich or Burnley. We need him. So whether Eddie Howe trusts him in order to make sure he manages himself and he doesn't do anything stupid in that in the game tomorrow. It's a great point, but the issue that we have is that Dwight Gale's already struggling as well. He's got another hamstring problem. So our 2 main strikers that we would potentially play up front, one's injured or struggling, the other is on a booking. So what do you do? What do you do? I mean, if it was
we've said for the last couple of seasons, what happens if Callum Wilson's missing, if he's injured or whatever? And this is a point proven once again. So, it's nice to say that Eric actually backed me up. He says he's more agrees more with mine because of Hayden helping us centre defender. We said it's all about opinions and stuff like that, and you know, as Pete mentioned, I think Pete meant more set it up to possibly the tiring at the end of the game and stuff, the fresh legs and stuff like that. So do you know what I mean? You could all work, and that's fantastic that you've all been. You know, even K Moggy's put his in there. He went for a 4-4-1-1. Dubravka, Lewis left back, Shaw, Fernandez, Manquillo, pretty much the same back four as us. Willock, Ritchie, and Shelvey as centre midfielders, with Maxi, Fraser, or Murphy on the right, Joe Linton, and then with Wilson up front. You know, fantastic team as well. You know, Shane's like that. That's what we said. I like the trio of ASM, Joe Linton, Wilson. They were fantastic last week, and I don't think anyone. I know he said obviously Willock provide. Hopefully, he provides them with some goals tomorrow, and he has an absolute blinder tomorrow. You know, Tanguy Vivid, he's put his team in there as well. Do you know, it's fantastic. It's a good talking point, and sometimes, you know, it's good for us to cover other people's because you don't get the platform to put yours in, and people don't actually talk about it. So that's one of the reasons why I want to do this, because it's something that me and Pete are really passionate about. But also to give. Go on, Matt.
A 3-3-1-3.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that before, ever.
No.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's a really, really tagging. That's a really, really interesting formation. And he's made it clear. I assume it's a he, but it made it clear at the end that Almiron is behind the top three is in a free role. That would be very, very interesting to unleash. And not Anderson Maxman, Miguel Almiron in his favourite position. He is a number 10 behind the striker or behind a forward line. So very, very interesting for him to set up a team like that. This is why we do it. Exactly what you said. This is why we do it, to get other people's opinions. We're not necessarily right on that. We just give our own opinions. But it's great to hear the other formations and the other lineups from other people. Absolutely spot on.
Well, that's one of the reasons, as I said, we want to do it. But if you like this little bit of a segment, you know, we have debated about doing it as a separate show as well, where come on, a bit like we do with our live line show, come on and actually talk your team through, put the passion into the team that you're picking and sell it to us and why you've picked that and stuff like that. Come and join. You know, we don't bite. You know, we saw the majority of our viewers at the Christmas party last week. Some great people that we met, like Brian Johnson's in the chat. Jeff was there last week as well. Donald was there. Tom Dixon, who's known as Julie Baker. We all met them last week. Fantastic people. So, you know, we don't bite. Come on the show, have a bit crack with us and stuff like that, and sell us your team and stuff like that. So if you've liked this little segment, let us know, and we'll do it again for you, because, you know, we enjoy doing this. So we've got 3 of the lads as well who will, you know, they might not be, you know, FA level coaches or anything like that, but they know football and they know how to pick a team, and that's what gets us all talking and all have an opinion. I think what we'll do is, Pete, we'll round the show off with predictions. How do you see the game going tomorrow?
So on away days yesterday, I was very, 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 very positive. I thought we could win the game. I think my prediction was it would be 2-1. I thought we could nick the game, and it was based on kind of like my formation. Really, is that we would maybe, you know, stop them playing, soak up the pressure, and as they tire late on in the game, we could maybe hit them and nick something. You know, speaking to the Arsenal fans, speaking to Curran, and speaking to a couple of the Arsenal fans tonight as well, it's very clear that they know that they start very well. They start off the front foot. They start very quick, very fast. They like to attack teams early on in the game. So I think the first half, potentially we could be under the cosh. But that's where I think we if we can get through that phase without conceding, or certainly being in a position where we're in the game, I think we're within a chance. I think if we score the first goal, I think that could really put the cat amongst the pigeons and really kind of get them to ask a few questions of themselves. So like I said, I went 2-1 yesterday. Today, I kind of was less positive. I thought that maybe we could get a point. So maybe a 1-1 or a 2-2 draw. But look, we're unloaded, Mag. We are Newcastle United fans. I am travelling tomorrow, making the early journey south. I want to see us win. So I'm going to go back to my original prediction, and I'm going to say we're going to win 2-1. We're going to get our first win of the season. Joe Willock, as I said yesterday, will score a goal, if not the winning goal, and we're going to move up the table. So that is my prediction, and I'm sticking to it.
I think we'll get something. I really do, and I'll be happy with a draw or a win. Obviously, love a win, but I'll be happy with a draw as well, because we know what a nightmare the Emirates is for us, unfortunately. But it's nice that we've actually got a coach that we know can surprise people, and we shouldn't be predictable tomorrow, which is good to see. Yeah. I think how the game goes depends on two things. One we touched on just now, which was, does Wilson start with the risk of the two big home games coming next week? That's something obviously we've got to consider. And the other one, which is we know he had a fantastic game last week, was John Joe Shelvey. Can he play the same sort of game with less time in the midfield? Because he'll not get the same amount of time tomorrow against the quality of the midfielders like Partey, Smith Rowe, Odegaard, that he did like against Brentford last week. So that's something to think about on that one. But yeah, I think we'll get something. I'd probably more lean towards the draw, if I'm honest. But as I said, I'd love it, the 3 points, as we all would, and hopefully start clawing up that 5-point deficit. And you never know, with two very, very winnable home games next week, which if we can get something tomorrow and then something, obviously you get 2 wins there, it looks a little bit rosier going into that mammoth run where everyone was going, you've got Leicester aren't playing that well at the minute. We went down then and turned them over last year, so there's nothing to say we couldn't do that again. And then obviously we've got the 2 Manchester clubs, both at St James's, either side of Christmas, which will be difficult games now that Man United have replaced the manager, got Ranić in, who we know, as we mentioned at the start of the show, very, very good coach. We don't need to say anything about Man City. We know what they're like. And then round the year off against misfiring Everton. So, you know what? If you look at the 2 games either side of the Manchester ones, and obviously what we've got, it might not be as bad as we've thought a few weeks ago, or of course at the start of the season, what that running could be. So I don't know, it could be optimism. We'll get something tomorrow, and that's the next building block to kick on, in my opinion. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to say everybody who's watched the show live tonight with me and Pete, thank you very much for joining us. I know it's a Friday night. I know the weather's not great out there, which might be why you stayed in to watch our ugly mugs all night. But we appreciate it, and what we'd like to say is enjoy the weekend. Hopefully, we get the result that we all want, and have a fantastic weekend. Good night.
Take care, boys.